Monsters aren't born, they're built. And in the case of Sean Diddy Combs, the world has spent years trying to figure out how one man rose so high, so fast, and why his legacy is now crumbling under the weight of accusations, scandals, and decades of bizarre rumors. But if you trace the story back far enough, past the fame, past the parties, past the powerhouse persona he crafted, you reach someone else. Someone even more powerful. Someone who shaped Diddy long before the world ever called him a monster. That man is Clive Davis, the executive who sat at the top of the music industry for generations, pulling strings, creating stars, and absorbing more power than most artists ever realized existed. And if you believe the allegations, whispers, and claims insiders have repeated for decades, Diddy learned more from Clive than just how to run a label. Diddy's story almost stopped before it began. In the early 90s, he was fired from Uptown Records by Andre Harrell. Not gently, not quietly, but abruptly and publicly. Harrell felt Diddy had an ego that couldn't be controlled, a hunger for power that didn't match his position, and a drive that threatened the hierarchy around him. Losing that job should have been a career-ending blow. But Harrell allowed Diddy to walk away with two artists, Craig Mack and a Brooklyn kid named Christopher Wallace, better known as Biggie. That decision saved Diddy's life. Diddy was desperate, ambitious, and furious, so he pushed his industry connections hard and managed to secure a meeting with Clive Davis, the legendary record executive running Arista Records, a man whose influence stretched across decades of music. Clive didn't see a problem. He saw potential, raw, relentless potential wrapped inside a 21-year-old who talked like he already ran the world. By the end of that meeting, Arista offered Diddy a $1.5 million advance with full creative control to launch Bad Boy Records. Just like that, the kid who had been fired for being too ambitious became one of the most powerful new forces in hip-hop. But not everyone believes that meeting was simply business, and the rumors that followed would become some of the darkest whispers in industry history. Because that moment didn't just shape Diddy's future, it may have reshaped him completely. And what happened next would make people question what really goes on behind closed doors. Before Clive Davis became the polished icon the world knew, he went through a public implosion that exposed the darker side of the music business. In 1973, he was abruptly fired from Columbia Records during a federal probe into payola, drug distribution, and widespread corruption. Reports at the time described forged invoices, extravagant personal spending billed to the label, and shady promotional tactics involving cash, gifts, and substances exchanged for radio play. Executives around him were caught supplying perks, favors, and illegal incentives to DJs and industry insiders. Rumors suggested that parties, illicit substances, and transactional encounters were part of the culture, a hidden economy that bought airplay, guaranteed loyalty, and kept artists dependent. Clive was fired, sued, investigated, and publicly humiliated. But he didn't disappear. He reinvented himself. And in doing so, he created an empire even more powerful than the one that collapsed beneath him. To some people, this is where the blueprint was written, a blueprint Diddy would later follow almost exactly. Because after surviving that scandal, Clive allegedly became the master of controlling artists, pressuring talent, and using influence to shape careers, for better or worse. And for someone as ambitious as Diddy, watching Clive operate must have been like witnessing royalty move through a kingdom. But that wasn't the end of the whispers, because Clive's professional scandals weren't the only things people talked about. There were rumors about private encounters, favoritism, and relationships that blurred the line between personal and professional power. And that brings us to the allegations that have followed Clive and Diddy ever since. In 2013, Clive Davis released a memoir that sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. In it, he revealed something he had hidden for decades, that he had been in long-term relationships with men throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s. He described these relationships with emotion and honesty. This wasn't scandalous on its own, but to people who had whispered about him for years, it felt like validation of rumors they had believed but could never prove. And here's where the speculation begins. because one of the relationships he mentioned took place during the exact years he was working closest with Diddy. Clive never named Diddy. He never suggested anything inappropriate. He never implied a transactional situation. But the timing fueled theories, especially when other figures in the industry began making claims of their own. One of the loudest voices was Suge Knight, who alleged publicly that Clive and Diddy had been romantically involved, claims he said came from Jimmy Iovine himself.
Jimmy's office, I didn't knock on the door or get somebody let Jimmy know Mr. Knight that walk right in. He do the same. Anyway, when he walked in my office, we was having a conversation. He overheard somebody say something he probably shouldn't have heard. He wanted to holler at me. So I said, "Only give me a minute." Jimmy said, "Man, I'm here because Clive Davis called me, and him and Puffy is real tight, and love it." So I thought he was something like they got love for each other. All right. He said, "Yeah, they all love." I said, "Well, why you keep saying that?" I said, "Look, you saying they lovers like they're sucking?" He said, "I don't want to say that, but that's what it means, right?" I said, "Okay." He said, "Clive don't want that to happen to Puffy." He said, "But this guy ain't gonna be able to do his business because we know what he did. What they did."
Is Diddy at a level of being untouchable where he's protected, or is Diddy a target that they'll eventually put all the blame on him and make sure they get away with it free?
I mean, he's definitely gonna be the black motherfucker holding the bag. Because you gotta realize one thing: that boy life is dangerous. His life is he's not dangerous with the shit they said he's doing, but he's in danger. He knows too much. One thing you gotta realize is he probably having a conversation right now with the higher ups and everybody else to figure out how it's gonna work itself out, because he know all the secrets. And if he gets to run his mouth, it could be a bad luck.
I know some of the big names. I'm just curious if you have any names. You don't seem like somebody.
Well, for number one was Clive Davis.
But what made these rumors explode was the idea that Clive rewarded loyalty, protected those closest to him, and elevated people he believed in, fiercely. Diddy thrived under Clive's protection. Bad Boy became a dominant force. Diddy rose almost unnaturally fast through an industry that is notoriously slow to let outsiders in. To some, that was proof enough. To others, it simply showed that Diddy had talent and Clive had vision. But those rumors weren't the most disturbing part of Clive's legacy. Far from it. Because once you look at the artists who fought him, you start to see a pattern. Clive Davis helped create some of the biggest stars ever seen, but he also left behind a long list of artists who accused him of unfair contracts, financial manipulation, or career sabotage. One of the most famous battles involved TLC. Their album, Crazy Sexy Cool, sold over 10 million copies. It made tens of millions for the label. But the members of TLC said they received just $50,000 each. They confronted Clive directly. They challenged the system. They refused to stay quiet.
Everything's not going the track of our career.
No.
I can say this. Everything's not going the way we so-called, quote-unquote, would want it to be or how it should be. But regardless, we're not going to let anybody hold us down. This proves it. And we've done good regardless to all the problems. We'll be going on tour. Okay, we're straight. We're going to talk.
You said your career is not exactly what you would have wanted it to be, but this proves it. What's not on? I'll tell it. We're not going to sugarcoat anything anymore. We've been quiet long enough. Can I get an amen?
Amen!
All right. Well, I'll put it to you this way. We are the biggest selling female group ever. 10 million albums worldwide. We have worked very hard. We have been in this business for 5 years. And we are broke as broke can be. And we're not like trying to be a sad story. If that was the case, we would have been on everybody's talk show talking about how broke we are. We haven't done that. I know it's hard to believe because we've sold so many albums, but it is possible. That's the deal here. So, and we're not happy at all. But for real, tonight, this is all we wanted. We wanted to win a Grammy, at least one, and we won two. And that proves that we are the jam.
And shortly after, their careers fell apart. Other artists began to speak up over the years. Angie Stone, Lyfe Jennings, Prince, and even Kelly Clarkson, who said Clive tried to force her into creative decisions and used his power to shape her career against her wishes. Again, none of these complaints involved violence or physical harm, but they painted a picture of someone who used leverage mercilessly. If you crossed him, your career suffered. If you obeyed, you were rewarded. People started noticing something else too, how Clive's protégés often echoed his behavior. And with Diddy, the similarities became impossible to ignore. But the darkest allegations, the ones involving tragedy, came from theories about artists who died under mysterious or heartbreaking circumstances. This is where the script must be careful. There are stories online about industry hazing, about young artists being pressured, about executives demanding favors, about relationships that blurred the line between opportunity and exploitation. These stories have circulated for decades. Suge Knight claimed Clive initiated Diddy into industry culture. Others online have repeated rumors about gatekeepers passing down traditions. None of this is proven, none of it has been confirmed. But the reason these rumors spread so easily is because of how secretive the music industry is, how much power sits in the hands of executives, and how little accountability exists behind those doors. Add in Diddy's recent lawsuits and public scrutiny, and people began looking backward, asking where he learned certain behaviors, who shaped his power, and why the patterns look so similar. Whether these claims are true or not, the speculation only got louder when tragedies involving major artists entered the conversation. And the one that never stops haunting people is Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was Clive Davis's crown jewel, the greatest star he ever launched. Her passing in 2012 devastated the world. The coroner ruled her death an accident caused by drowning, with heart disease and substance use listed as contributing factors. That is the official, documented cause. But even with that ruling, speculation never died. Fans questioned why Whitney had been behaving erratically days before, why she was staying in the same hotel where Clive's annual pre-Grammy party was happening, why people reported that the water in her tub was unusually hot, why diagrams from the coroner suggested defensive injuries, something that fueled conspiracy theories online. Investigators have never proven anything criminal. Police never charged anyone. There is no evidence Clive Davis had any involvement. But rumors persisted, especially when people learned that Clive kept the pre-Grammy party running after Whitney's body was still in the building. Some saw it as cold, some saw it as disrespectful. Others believed it hinted at something darker. Again, there is no proof of foul play, but for conspiracy theorists, this moment became the centerpiece of their arguments. And once again, the same question resurfaced. Why do tragedies seem to orbit certain powerful men in the music industry? And the answer, some say, isn't about individuals, but about the system they operate in. Here's the truth the industry rarely admits. Power shapes people. It distorts them. It rewards manipulation. It protects those who play the game and destroys those who resist it. Clive Davis wasn't the first executive accused of exploiting artists. Diddy won't be the last. When you look at the patterns, the scandals, the lawsuits, the rumors, the unequal contracts, the tragedies, you see something bigger than two men. You see an industry built on silence, an industry where success requires obedience, an industry where talent is disposable, but power is permanent. Diddy didn't invent this system. Clive didn't invent it either. They simply learned how to use it. And as long as the machine keeps running, more names will rise, more scandals will surface, and more artists will suffer. The only way to stop the cycle is to expose the system itself, the one that makes monsters, hides them, and then acts shocked when the world finally sees what's been happening all along. Because trust me, Diddy and Clive Davis are not the only ones. They're just the ones people finally started talking about.